Hello, my name is Brittany Smith. I am a former resident here at the Brooks, and I want to tell you about my brief experience here at the Brooks. The Brooks is a welcoming place that I would recommend to anyone in need of help. They provided our daily essentials such as soap, lotion, deodorant, pull-ups, wipes, laundry needs, clean environment, clean bathrooms, breakfast and dinner, Wi-Fi, books, and tons of resources and advice. They have kind and well-mannered staff members who made us feel welcome here. The level of care we received went beyond anything I could have ever expected. They also provided me with a case manager who kept me in the loop, explained everything in full detail, and she made sure that I knew what I was signing before I signed. She is awesome. Her name is Miss Jasmine. The Brooks is a place that I am glad to experience and got the pleasure of becoming a resident of. The customer service at the Brooks was remarkable and excellent. That I want to thank the staff and every member of the Brooks because each of you are an important part of the Brooks. Thanks again, everyone. I also would like to do a brief background of myself. I'm 29. I'm a single mom of 3 kids with 1 on the way. I have experienced turmoil, pain, and everything, and this place helped open up opportunities for me that made a better opportunity for me and my children. And I just want to say I am proud and grateful to be here to be able to tell my story. And without further ado, I would like to, I'm sorry. Without further ado, I would like to introduce the Mayor Bowser. Thank you.
Nicely done. Nicely done. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Brooks. I am delighted to be here. I am delighted to be here with members of my team, this wonderful community, and everybody who is focused like we are on making sure we can make homelessness rare, brief, and non-recurring in Washington, D.C. I want to thank you, Ms. Smith, for sharing your story and for also making sure that all of our neighbors and friends across Washington, D.C. know that our short-term family housing facilities like the Brooks are for people who need a fresh start, who need a place to make sure that they can reset their lives and be on their way to permanent housing. I also want to take a moment because I know that our community, especially those focused on making homelessness rare, brief, and non-recurring, experience just a tremendous loss this week, as we all have as Washingtonians. Walden Adams and Rhonda Whitaker were killed in a tragic crash in East Potomac Park just days ago. Walden was a member of our Interagency Council on Homelessness and a tremendous advocate in the community. I happened to know Walden through his work, but I knew his parents even better because they were my neighbors for 16 years in Riggs Park. And we know how tremendous an advocate he was. Rhonda and Walden both overcame a lot in their lives and showed us what it means to be resilient, kind, and not forget the next person in need. Their lives also exemplified that every day that we have to live is a day to remake, to reset, and to help other people. So if you would join me in a moment of silence to remember their great souls. Thank you very much. So we're here today to recognize the tremendous work that went into creating the beautiful Brooks. Isn't she lovely? We weren't able to be together last year when it opened, probably on time, in a great community with a lot of great community input. But we knew that the Department of Human Services would not stop in making sure that families could be welcomed here, and that's what we see. Today, we want to thank Jean-Michel and Friendship Place for their wonderful work in making this program at the Brooks successful. In just 1 year, and in the middle of a pandemic, Friendship Place at the Brooks has helped to exit 100 families into permanent housing. I want to also recognize our council member for Ward 3, Mary Cheh. Let's give Mary a big round of applause. She was instrumental in ensuring that our 8-ward strategy for short-term family housing could be a success. And I want to thank her for her leadership in the Ward 3 community. I also want to thank neighbors who helped to make this a beautiful design and to ensure that services would support families, and having their own programs and services to make the Brooks a part of this community. So give them a round of applause. And I want to say a special thank you to our leadership on all of these issues, which are complicated issues. And that's Director of the Department of Human Services, Laura Zeilinger. Give Laura a big round of applause. And the district's first ever director of the Interagency Council on Homelessness, Christy Greenwald. Give Christy Greenwald a round of applause. As well as a big thank you, because Christy is going to be moving on from district government service, and when she looks back on her time in district government, she will be able to count a lot of accomplishments, but more than that, a lot of people helped and a system transformed. We know, for example, from the new point in time count, that overall homelessness in the city is down 20% from last year, and family homelessness is down 50% since last year. And for the first time, we saw a small decrease in individual homelessness as well. We know that this pandemic has put additional stress on our efforts and the ability to move people into permanent housing. It's put even more people on the precarious line from stable housing to being housing unstable. And that's why it's so important for all of us to stay focused on keeping people in safe housing, making sure they have access to over $300 million in rent relief. We've tried to put that in one place that's easy to apply for at stay.dc.gov, where a person who's been impacted by COVID can get up to 12 months of back rent paid and 3 months looking forward. So when we think about and talk about a pending eviction cliff, it doesn't have to be that way. People can avert any of those types of actions by going to stay.dc.gov and applying. Director Tommy Wells is also here, whose agency is responsible for utility relief, which is also available at stay.dc.gov. So with that, we're going to continue our celebration of the Brooks by hearing from our Councilmember Mary Cheh.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. It's a distinct pleasure for me to join everybody today, not only because, look, we're able to gather together outside, albeit, but nevertheless, we are gathering together. And finally now, we're going to celebrate the triumph of the Brooks in Ward 3. And I want to also give special thanks and acknowledgement to the mayor. She had the leadership to say we were going to close down DC General, that horrible set of circumstances that existed there for people who were experiencing homelessness. And instead, we were going to have shelters in all 8 wards, including Ward 3. And that vision has been realized, and it's been a great boon to be able to help people who are in need. So I think we need to give the mayor a round of applause. Now, I also want to tell you that getting the Brooks up and running here in terms of, working with the community and getting, everybody on board, there are people here today, and I can't acknowledge all of them, who from the community really were instrumental in making this happen, and particularly members of the faith community who are in the audience as well. So I really want to thank them. They were steadfast, and they were committed right from the beginning, and they helped inevitably make this a successful operation. So for them as well, please. Now, the pandemic, the coronavirus, certainly slowed down the ribbon cutting, but it didn't slow down the operations of DHS and our phenomenal managing partner here at the Brooks, Friendship Place. I am such a fan of Friendship Place for all of the work that they do, and I felt like we had won the lottery when it turned out that they got the contract to run the Brooks. Jean-Michel and his extensive staff of volunteers and paid workers and, a whole, network of people who deal with issues with respect to people experiencing homelessness every day. And what Friendship Place is especially wonderful to do is to take folks and to care about them as individuals, and not only to help them find shelter, but to help them remake their lives. That's what they do, and they do it wonderfully. So I want to thank Friendship Place and Jean-Michel for all the work that they've done. Now, as you know, when the Brooks opened, it was during the pandemic, and probably the most frightening, awful time, dangerous time for people generally with the disease spreading and so on. And we didn't yet have, the vaccine ready to go. And we were all told that we had a shelter in place, keep our distance and take all of these actions to protect ourselves. Well, what do you do when you don't have a place to shelter? What do you do when you're stuck, out there without help or recourse? You have to have someone assist you. It's just the way it is. And so in terms of social distancing and dealing with all the recommendations of the CDC and our own health department, it was virtually impossible until we had places for people who were experiencing homelessness and families in particular. This particular facility and every other ward-based facility, the family housing facilities, have been essential, absolutely essential in literally saving lives. And this is the cause for celebration. And what they've done already, they will continue to do in the future. And of course, with Friendship Place, we know that we will have the best partner we could possibly have, and that success will be ours and will be the people who come here for our assistance. And the mayor mentioned some statistics. It's already happened. It's happening. However, as joyous as today is, and it is, I want to say something, as the mayor did, about a terrible loss that we suffered, namely the death of Waldron Adams and Rhonda Whitaker, who were killed in that horrible accident. Mr. Adams was a board member and a proud Friendship Place alum. Another life saved. So we're very sorry, and we have to acknowledge that even amidst this celebration. Now, for the celebration itself, it does mark a major milestone in the development of our shelters around the district and how we're able to put people and their lives back together and help them begin a new life. People have to have the opportunity. They have to have assistance sometimes. We want them to have their dignity, and we want their children to have every opportunity that every child in the District of Columbia has. So I'm very proud that we're able to welcome the Brooks finally, at this celebration finally into Ward 3. And I thank everybody who was part of that, who will continue to be part of that. And I want to thank, in particular, as I said, the mayor for her vision to see that this would happen. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. And now let's hear from Laura Zeilinger, who will also introduce Jean-Michel Giraud from Friendship Place.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilmember, and good morning, everyone. I am so very happy to be with you today. It was about 4.5 years ago that I came in front of this community, and we had many meetings. There were weeks when I saw many of you more than my own family, as we had vigorous debates about how we would build a program here to support families in the right way that could work in concert with the community and be a resource and an addition. And I think that we can say that we were very successful together in creating a beautiful space, a space that welcomes our neighbors, a space that makes Washington, D.C. more equitable, as people who don't often look like the neighbors who live here can still find help here and access resources in this community. And as we continue to pursue our affordable housing strategies, hopefully more people will find affordability here in this neighborhood and enjoy these resources for the time to come. I am particularly grateful to my team at the Department of Human Services as well for the tremendous efforts of working community, not just here at the Brooks, but across all 8 wards in the city. And our short-term family housing program is led by Jenna Savasco, who is here today. You might have met her if you received one of these End Homelessness masks. She was passing them out. And she has just been a phenomenal leader and worked very close providing technical assistance at all of the short-term family housing programs where we have supported families to end their homelessness more quickly. So part of making homelessness rare, brief, and non-recurring is most certainly that brief part. And what I've said to many of you as we've had these conversations in community about won't you just need more and more and more of these places, is that when we provide a place that provides the right services and the right environment for families to thrive, they will be able to regain stability and permanency more quickly. And that is exactly what is happening. The average length of stay across our system is under our goal of an average of 90 days or less, and that is far down from what it had been in the past at DC General and in overflow motels. So we are not only proving right what families have always told us, which is what they really want is a place of their own and to provide a better life for their children. And I think that is clear from Ms. Taylor in her story today. But also, it is true that when it is not that places are ever too nice to support people, that somehow it is the discomfort that motivates people to something different. It is the discomfort that only perpetuates trauma and does not recognize the human worth and dignity that we need to be part of supporting people to rebuild when they're suffering. And so this program, both the way it is run, the environment that it's in, and the way our partners and community have embraced it is so important to that. I want to acknowledge our partners on our advisory team. I co-chaired that team with Chairperson McWood and worked very closely with then ANC Commissioner Angela Bradbury and others on that team. And I also want to really thank the Friends of the Brooks, who are, I also see representatives today, for the resources that they've brought. The other thing I want to just note is that this has been an incredible year, that I'm not telling anybody anything new and it sounds cliche or over what at this point, but it is important that we are sort of in this place of both tremendous loss, and that loss seems like it keeps happening over and over again, and it is exhausting. And those of us who do this work in human services and in our spiritual partners and those that are part of a helping community often feel beaten down by that. And it is so important when that happens that we take the time to stop and recognize that, but also to stop and celebrate and look up and see that the work that we're doing matters. And so I am so thrilled about the results of our point in time count, that we are seeing historic reductions in homelessness. We all know it is not because housing has gotten more affordable for more people, that wages have caught up with the price of housing. We're working hard at making more affordable housing for people, but we know it is very much the systems reform the mayor talked about, that preventing homelessness, supporting people in shelter in the right ways in short-term family housing, as well as supporting their exits, that we have seen 50% reduction in just 1 year in family homelessness. And it is, yes, there is an eviction moratorium, but it is also true that it coincides with the opening of all of our short-term family housing sites and those system reforms. And we also know that when people enter shelter, they often are not coming from their own lease, but they're coming from doubled up situations. And so we are very proud of that reform, and we are leaning in on that reform on single adult homelessness. And we expect, with the right investments, the investments that we've made in the family system and things that are in a much larger, much more complex system, we know the things that work, and we will see reductions, even deeper reductions in single adult homelessness. Now, not only did we talk about the tremendous heroes that we lost this week in Walden, Adams, and Rhonda Whitaker, but this building is named for another one of those heroes who also faced a sudden loss. Donald Brooks, I got to know for decades. He was, when I first met him, a very vocal advocate on behalf of veterans. He was a veteran himself. He worked in a number of social service agencies, and finally, toward the end of his life, worked at the Department of Human Services. He was a member of our Interagency Council on Homelessness. When he came to work at DHS, he said, "Do I still get to sit on the ICH?" Because at that table, he was the person who was going to speak truth to power. And he was always challenging us to do better. He challenged us to not only try to help people find housing, but help them find work. If our Department of Employment Services was not at the table and missed a meeting, he was calling them out. If any one of our agency partners was not there and fully leaned in, he was asking about them, and he was always demanding we do better. He raised the bar for all of us in our community, and he demanded places of dignity for families and gave back the same way Walden was giving back as well to the community, and making sure that he was helping others and sharing his story and lending a loving hand in order to help more people exit homelessness. So I am thrilled that we were able to name this building so that his legacy can live on for the people who will receive the help they need in it. With that, I am going to acknowledge my partner and also longtime friend, Jean-Michel Giraud. I am very proud of the work that we've done together, and that they were part of the competition for a provider for this building, and that they were selected as the council member felt she won the lottery. And it's true, when I called her to tell her, she cheered. She was like, "Whoa, that's great." It was as if she had. So, and I understand why they're an absolutely fantastic partner and really known to this community here in Ward 3. So with that, I will turn it over to Jean-Michel. Thank you, everyone who is here with us today.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the very kind words, Laura. Laura and I have been working together to end homelessness with everybody else in helping out in DC for years now, and it's a pleasure to work with the Department of Human Services. Certainly it was a great honor to be selected to run the Brooks. As you can tell, she is beautiful, and we're so happy to be here, so proud to have added the Brooks to our mission, particularly as we're celebrating our 30th anniversary at Friendship Place. So this was a very wonderful achievement. I want to thank all the people who got Friendship Place started 30 years ago, all the neighbors, all the friends who keep on helping us. We could never do this work without you. I'm thankful also for the folks in the faith community who support us with these over 30 religious congregations that make our work possible as well. As you've heard, the Brooks is named after Donald Brooks, and Donald and I were colleagues on the DC Interagency Council on Homelessness, where Laura told you how active and forward-thinking he was, challenging us all to do better every time. And you need folks like that on the council, and so it was wonderful to have him. We lost him too soon, and we were very much saddened by his loss. And as you've heard in the last week, we were very much saddened by the losses of two people, Rhonda Whitaker and Walden Adams, who was a part of our community, serving on our board, on our Speakers Bureau, and who died during an accident at Haynes Point on Saturday. We will miss them very much. Their work as advocates was exemplary at Miriam's Kitchen as well as at Friendship Place, as I said, for Walden. Our prayers and thoughts are with their family members. I want to thank you all for coming today or for watching online since we're streaming. And you might wonder why a ribbon cutting takes place a year after the place opens. Well, that's because of COVID, of course. COVID had to interfere with this. But I'm happy to say that as COVID unfolded and as we left the offices on March 13th, not knowing what next week would be like, the Friendship Place teams, all the teams, showed amazing resilience. And so it has been a very challenging year in many ways, but it's also been a year where we've shown courage, we have continued to serve, we have been out there present with the people we need to support, helping vulnerable people stay in and get the resources they needed, and of course, reaching out to our partners at the Department of Human Services for their help, but also to a number of community groups. And I have thanks to give, so bear with me. I'd like to thank Patty Stonecipher, who is here today, for creating Friends and Neighbors of the Brooks and raising so much money to provide the extra things to our families to make their transitions even better. So thank you so much for that, Patty. I'd like to thank the Ward 3 Democrats for the many, many books we received from you. We appreciate your support. The children and family members do too here at the Brooks. Thank you so much for doing this. I'd like to thank all the other donors also who have helped us at Friendship Place and to support the Brooks. And these donors are all around us in neighborhoods, sometimes very far from here and sometimes very close. So that's a wonderful thing to see, that a community would reach out to help an organization like ours do better and welcome people who need to rebuild their lives. I'd like to thank, of course, the Congregations Committee at Friendship Place for reaching out to all these congregations for the extra help and producing all these wonderful results. Thank you. Joel Fishman, our congregation co-chair, and Mitch Fulton, our chair. Thank you, Mitch, for these years of service. As our chair, Mitch will be stepping down in June, but staying on our board. Great. I would, of course, like to thank you, Brittany, for coming back to us and sharing your experience at Friendship Place. We appreciate you very much. I would like to commend you, Mayor Bowser, for your vision and commitment to ending homelessness in DC. It took tremendous courage during a first term to do everything the mayor had to do to launch these initiatives that we're now seeing coming to completion, and the results really are there. So thank you so much, Mayor Bowser, for your support. Thank you also, Councilmember Cheh. Councilmember Cheh, Mary, you're wonderful, you know that. We love you back. And all the support you give us, you have through the years. You were there during the very early years for me at Friendship Place when you did some very special things that helped us keep going. So thank you so much for everything you do. And whenever we have a problem, we know we can count on Mary in these neighborhoods. So that's a wonderful thing. Director Zeilinger, Laura, thank you for your leadership, your support. We know the road has been long and hard, but the results are there. And it took a leader like you, Laura, to create all these new solutions, reach out to all the new partners to make things happen. So we're well on our way to ending homelessness in DC. I would also like to acknowledge Christy Greenwald, the Executive Director of the DC Interagency Council. As you've heard from the mayor, she is leaving us after many years of very, very effective and wonderful service. Thank you, Christy, for everything you have done for us in DC. And I'd like to acknowledge Jenna Savasco, who runs the short-term housing facilities in the city. She has all the facilities under her. She's been amazing supporting Catherine Mitchell, who runs the Brooks and who will be speaking after me. Thank you so much, Jenna, for everything you do for us. So this is a day of celebration at Friendship Place. We have opened a year ago a wonderful facility that gives families a place to rebuild with dignity. And you can't say enough about that. And we are proud to have added it to our mission. I would like to acknowledge all the families who have come to us during the pandemic and showed the courage it took to rebuild under such difficult circumstances. We appreciate everything they did, and we appreciate the results. They are in housing now, and their homelessness is over. I would also like to thank and commend Catherine Mitchell for her leadership. Catherine is over there and will be speaking after me. Round of applause, thank you. I think we will all agree that it was amazing to take on the challenge to open the Brooks during a pandemic, and then to do so well, to assemble a team that is friendly, well-trained, knows what to do, knows how to support people. So along with Catherine, I'd like to commend the entire staff of the Brooks for their courage serving during the pandemic, for their dedication and commitment to providing the best care and services possible to our families. Thank you. Over to you, Catherine.
Good morning. My name is Catherine Mitchell, and I'm the Chief Program Officer and Director of the Brooks. On behalf of the Brooks team, I'd like to thank Mayor Bowser, Councilmember Cheh, and Director Zeilinger for joining us in celebration of our first anniversary today. I'd also like to thank the staff at DHS, particularly Jenna and Sylvia, the Brooks Advisory Team, the congregations, and the supporters and donors who have been in our corner from day one, empowering our program towards success. Opening and launching this program was one of the most challenging yet rewarding experiences of my career, and I cannot express enough gratitude for the staff and subcontractors of the Brooks who showed up every day during this pandemic as essential workers to build and grow the short-term family housing program. From our janitorial team from Bologna to our security team from Colorado Security, our engineer team from MBB, Henry's, our food vendor, and of course, our residential aides, our shift supervisors, our operations team, and our case management staff. Our entire team has aligned with our core values and have demonstrated hospitality and remained committed to providing a safe, hygienic, and supportive environment to our families at the Brooks, no matter the external challenges that we have faced. Our team remains inspired by and dedicated to providing the highest quality of care to our residents, knowing that the transition into short-term family housing and onward to permanent housing during a pandemic has been far from easy. Ms. Smith, thank you for sharing your story today and for being an inspiration to us all. We're proud to be a small part of your experience as you move onwards towards your bright, bright future. I'm immensely proud that the entire Brooks team is living up to the ideals shared by the Brooks' namesake, Donald Brooks, who is a former coworker of mine. So please join me in welcoming Cynthia and Mitchell Brooks, family members of Donald Brooks, who will share a few words about Donald Brooks' legacy.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Cynthia Prosperous Brooks. I am the widow to the late Donald Brooks. I must say it has been my honor and a pleasure to be married to him because he always made me feel like a queen. Good morning or good afternoon, Mayor Muriel Bowser, Councilmember Mary Cheh, Laura Zeilinger, Director of the DHS, Catherine Mitchell, the Brooks, and then Jean-Michel Giraud, the Friendship Place President, CEO, Mr. Chris Kennedy, Community Engagement Manager, dignitaries, families, and friends. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share a portion of my late husband and King, Donald Leroy Brooks' legacy. Mr. Donald Brooks, U.S. Army veteran, served as a beloved husband, father, family man, mentor, humanitarian, and yes, author. Additionally, he was honored as a Veteran Father of the Year for DC Fatherhood Coalition and the Bronze Medal of Valor recipient for the DC Fire Department. He was a dynamic advocate for homeless veterans in the District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia communities. He was commissioned by our very own District of Columbia's Mayor, Muriel Bowser, to serve a 5th term as a board member of the Interagency Council on Homelessness, where he represented constituents experiencing homelessness. Don was committed to creating the systemic changes needed to prevent and end homelessness by advocating for permanent emergency housing and addressing issues of housing injustices for the homeless. In his co-authored book with me, The Elephant in the Room, which is going to be released in May, he shared his experience of how it felt to have his own apartment after 10 years of homelessness. And I invite you to share with me as I read one of the passages titled, The Changeling. You all, if you knew him, you knew he was a man of his own right, said what was on his mind. The changeling is a sound I hear or the sound I cause people to hear. When I was working in the shelter and some of the guys or residents who worked different jobs would come and talk crap, a load of stuff to me. They would have a pocket full of money and walk past my desk and say, "Yeah, Mr. Brooks, how do you like this lettuce?" That's money. I would say, "That's nice." I would be hungry and broke, barely having lunch money or didn't have lunch money. They said, "Yeah," and would constantly throw the fact they had money in my face. I said, "Yeah, I got something better than lettuce." They said, "What's that?" I would dig in my pocket and shake my keys at them, and I said, "Changeling, changeling." They asked, "What's that?" I said, "Keys to my own place. I'm not living here in a shelter with 400 men." As I remembered and went on in life, I would give housing presentations every Wednesday when I started working with Pathways to Housing and even Easter seals. I used to talk to individuals, mostly veterans, talking to them about gaining their own apartment, their own house, or their own place, whatever it was, condominium, house, townhome, it didn't matter. I used to explain to them that the greatest sound I have, and they should have, is the changeling. They would say, "Changeling? What the hell are you talking about, sir?" I said, "You've gotten paid from a job, dug in your pockets, and pulled out a handful of dollar bills, but didn't have the changeling." The changeling is a set of keys to your own place. You might have stayed in a motel, hotel, Holiday Inn, and they got cards, so you won't hear the changeling. But now, you have made a giant step in your life when you're able to shake house keys, some type of keys, to your own place. That's the greatest sound in the world, especially if you have been homeless, especially if you have been living with somebody else on their turf and their roofs or whatever. It wasn't yours. The greatest sound, to be honest, is when you have that changeling. When you stick that key in your door and knowing that you can close the world out from beyond when you know it's yours, that you are paying and working for it. That's the greatest sound, especially to me. And to anybody who didn't have their own set of keys to their own place, there's no better sound than the changeling. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let's give the Brooks family a big round of applause. Rabbi, I saw you leaning in. That sounded like a sermon about the changeling. And I just really couldn't put it any better, because that is the story of Housing First. And that is why we have been so focused on that strategy in the District of Columbia. So with that, I think we should cut the ribbon. And let me acknowledge, they've been acknowledged, but I want to acknowledge them personally, Rabbi Lustig, Rabbi Alexander, Reverend Hamlin, for being a part of the congregations who have wrapped their hands and arms around the Brooks. So please give them a big round of applause. And if you'll join me, please, for the ribbon cutting. And then I'll return to the podium to take a few press questions.
Do you want to stand with the mayor?
Okay, on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Welcome to the Brooks. But not in a while. All right. Don't run with them.